Hello and welcome to your second revision video for WJEC Vocational ICT. So last lesson, the last video, sorry, we looked at common computing devices as well as some common input and output devices. This video is a standalone one for three other peripherals. So we've got printers, and there's a few different types of printers you need to know about for your exam. Some readers, some different types of readers, and some different types of scanners. So we've got some input devices and we've got some output devices, but I purposely made this a separate one because unlike other peripherals like a webcam where there's just one, there's multiple printers, there's multiple scanners, multiple readers that you need to be aware of. So straight on, so quick reminder about what an input device is. Input device is any peripheral, any piece of hardware that lets you send information into a computer. It helps you enter data, give commands, or control the system. Common examples that we've gone over in the previous video, things like keyboards, mice, microphones, webcams, different things like that. Right, so straight on to readers. Now, biometric readers, one of the first ones that you need to know for your exam, could come up in a wide variety of questions on your exam, this one. Biometrics is all about you, your physical traits. A lot of companies, as technology is getting cheaper and easier to implement, are starting to implement these things. Some schools will use fingerprint scanners so that you can go and get your dinner and you just need to put your finger on a little piece of plastic and it'll scan your finger to detect if it's you or if it's not you. Things like fingerprints, eye scanners, face scanners, you use them all the time now. So common uses in mobile phones, everybody that's got an Apple or a Samsung is going to be using Face ID. So very, very common now. High security places will use biometric readers, so places like airports, military bases, laboratories, things like that where security needs to be high. Some pros and cons. Well, it's very convenient. You're not going to forget to take your finger to school or to work, so it's very, very convenient in that sense. Secure. But there is some privacy concerns around biometrics because your biometric traits are going to be stored on a system somewhere, which is potentially, like anything that's electronic on a server somewhere, could potentially be stolen. So a company that stores your fingerprints, your facial recognition information on a server somewhere, it does raise privacy issues. So that's one of the major concerns around biometric readers. RFID, so radio frequency identification. So it reads information stored in RFID tags. You may have heard of these, and it uses radio waves. Common examples include contactless payment cards, inventory tracking. So companies that have got warehouses will have RFID tags on on pallets, on different things like that where they're storing inventory, and you can use an RFID reader to scan the tag really quickly and find the information, maybe is what's included on that pallet, the ID of it, maybe is where it's going, loads of different types of information. It's very fast, it's a wireless technology, but again, if it's not secure, it is prone to being hacked. So again, some pros and cons there. Magnetic strip readers tend not to really get used much now. They do still use them on some bank cards. Hotel keys, so if you've ever stayed in a hotel, you will sometimes be given a card like the size of a driver's license or a bank card that you can swipe on the door or insert into the key, and it has a magnetic strip on the back of it that holds the information, so it reads data encoded into that magnetic strip. Pros to that is they're very, very cheap, really cheap to buy and set up, very simple technology, but the more you use it, the more that magnetic strip's going to wear down, and scratches and things like that, it's going to make the card not work. So a few pros and cons with that one. So next one is magnetic ink character recognition, an MICR. reader. So the purpose is it reads special magnetic ink on printed documents. So it's commonly used in banking industry. So as an example on checks, so that you probably maybe's not seen a check. Checks used to be used quite a lot into for paying for products, especially if it was a large order. Tends to be that bank transfers are done now, or you would use a card or a credit card and things like that. But the ink within the ink would be red, and it would the reader would be able to see like what the amount was or what the signature was and different things like that. So it's accurate, it's secure, but limited to banking industry really. It's not really used anywhere else. Next one is optical mark reader, OMR. You'll have seen this in the shops. Every shop just about has one. If you've seen the lottery stands, you might have seen your parents put the lottery on. Detects marks on special forms that have been created. They also used in exams. So, for example, I know the economics exam has multiple choice questions at the beginning, where it gives you a question and then 4 potential answers, and you put a little cross or a little mark in the answer that you think's right. These are fed through a reader, and the software will pick up where the marks are and collate that information. Just like the lottery machines when your parents put the lottery on. Very, very fast, very accurate, but only works with special types of forms that have been set up. So on to barcode. This is a very common one, a barcode reader. You'll have used this yourself if you've ever gone through self-service checkout in the shop. Some self-service checkouts have these hand scanners. You can also get like flatbed scanners that you pass your barcode across. Scans black and white barcodes to identify products. Very, very simple. It's been around for a long time. Very effective. Usually used in retail at checkouts, or for inventory management if you're managing your stock to see how many products you've got in stock and whatnot. Pros to it, it's very quick and it's simple. It's been around for years. Like I say, it's very reliable. Negative of it though, it requires line of sight, and you may have come across an instance where you're going through a self-checkout and the barcode's maybe is damaged or it's crinkled a little bit, and you try and scan it and the reader can't quite pick up the barcode because it's distorted in some fashion. But it does require line of sight, so that's a disadvantage of barcode readers. Next one you may have used, you may not have used. We use them in school sometime. QR code readers. Basically anything with a camera and some QR code software can read these. That the kind of like the modern day barcode. You can contain lots and lots of information in a QR code. Things like website links or other data, files, all sorts of different things. Can store lots of data, like I said, easily scanned by smartphones, but you do require a camera in order to read a QR code. Scanner, very, very common one. Again, these have been around for years. You will notice in the corridors, you've got these on top of the big multifunctioning printers. So flatbed scanner is used to digitize a physical document. So let's say somebody draws a picture, or there's a picture that's been that you haven't got on the computer anymore and you want a digital version of it. You can scan it by placing it face down on a flatbed scanner, and then you use software on the computer to capture and read that image, and then it creates you a digitized version of it. Pros and cons up, it can produce very high quality. You can adjust the settings in the software so it can be a quick scan, so it's less of a file size, or very high quality, which is going to be a large file size. Can be slow, and probably the biggest disadvantages are quite bulky. So if you've got them, obviously you'll see the ones on the multifunctioning printers there out in corridors, but you can get flatbed ones like that picture on the left where it'll sit on your desk. They're not huge, but they do take up space. Right, on to output devices. So quick reminder of what an output device is. It's a peripheral, a piece of hardware that allows you to send information from a computer, so it's presented to you in some way so that you can hear or see it, or something like that. Common examples are monitors that we looked at last video, speakers, and we're going to look at printers now because there's a few printers you need to be aware of. So the vocational IT exam is going to expect you to know what an inkjet printer is. These are very common. They are the cheapest version of a printer. You can pick them up from shops really, really cheaply now. It's a general purpose printer for text and high quality images. It sprays tiny droplets of ink directly onto your paper where they're then dry. The biggest disadvantage of these though is that the ink costs a lot of money. So the machine itself is really cheap, but the inks cost a lot of money. Some people I've heard, and this is true, that it's cheaper to buy a new printer with some ink in than go out and buy replacements for that printer. Home printing, so if you've got a little office at home or you need a printer at home to print some letters out maybe that you need to do, this is a great printer to use for that. Really, really quick, dead cheap to buy, so on and so forth. So inkjet printers, make sure you know though that an inkjet printer is for home printing, limited printing. You're not going to be printing massive amounts of documents out on this thing, loads of images and things like that. You are going to be doing limited printing, cheap printing, and it sprays tiny droplets of liquid ink directly onto the paper. Next one, laser printers. This is what we use in school. Officers will have them as well, designed for fast. So whereas the inkjet printer is slow, the laser printer is fast, high volume printing. So if you need to print off loads of information, loads of documents, laser printer is the way to go. So how it works, it uses a laser beam and toner powder, so it's fused onto the paper with heating elements on the rollers. So it will deposit toner onto your paper, and the heating elements bind it to the paper as it passes through. Common uses in offices, in schools, in businesses where lots of documents are needed to be printed, and that's the key that you need to remember for your exam. If it's talking about something there that's going to be high volume printing, laser printers is the way to go. Pros and cons, it's very fast, sharp text, so it produces high quality text, high quality images. It's cost effective for large amounts of printing, whereas an inkjet printer is not cost effective for that in that sense. But the initial cost is high, so the actual devices are very costly. Right, 3D printers, the newest type of printer. You may be lucky enough to use one of these before. Creating three-dimensional objects from digital designs. So use different types of materials, so mainly plastics and things like that. How it works is it adds material layer by layer, often plastic, but there is other types of 3D printers that use other types of materials. Common uses is to create models, to create prototypes of products that might, before they go into mass production. Medical implants are also being used now, so implants that are going to be put inside of somebody, they're now 3D printing these things. Pros and cons, customizable, very customizable, very innovative, so you can create new things. Lots of new businesses that are selling on Etsy and selling on these marketplaces will create little products using 3D printers, like phone cases, phone stands, hangers for hanging your pictures on the wall, all sorts of different stuff. But they're very, very slow and they're very, very expensive at the minute. It might be in years to come the price reduces, but at the minute they're very expensive. Dot matrix printers, these are really old technology now, but they print continuous or duplicate forms. They stand out because the paper that's used on them has this edged sort of tearaway section of it where it's fed through on little handles. The pin inside of the printer strikes an inkhead ribbon on above the paper, which marks the paper with ink. Common uses are receipts, invoices, shipping labels in warehouses. So somewhere where they're printing huge amounts of information. So maybe it's financial institutes where they're printing off loads of transactions. They would use this, and the paper folds itself. It's designed to fold on top of each other, so you don't have to empty the tray. It sort of like prints out the back and starts stacking up on the floor behind it. Very durable. It's a very reliable printer, and it can print multi-part forms. Very noisy if you've ever been around one, and it's very low quality, so it's only really good for doing text. You wouldn't print images out on a dot matrix printer. Thermal printer. These are relatively cheap. You can get them on the internet, so it prints quickly without ink. How it works is it uses a special type of paper that is heat sensitive, so it changes colour when it's heated by the printer. Common uses, it's till receipt, so when you go to the shop and you get your receipt, that is a thermal printer that prints out on the receipt paper. Train tickets, if you go and buy a ticket on the train, labels and things like that. Teachers sometimes can have these little thermal printers so that they can type up feedback, and then it prints out on a little piece of paper that can be stuck to a book. Positives and negatives, they're very fast, incredibly quiet, but the print fades over time, and again, it's for simple sort of print jobs, very small, simple jobs. Dye sublimation printers, high quality printers, long lasting colour prints. This is for industry sort of printing, so it uses heat to turn dye into gas that bonds with special paper. You don't really need to know the ins and outs of how it works. You really only need to know if you're doing really intense professional style photographic printing for big promotional work. Maybe it's on the side of a bus shelter, things like that. ID cards, professional graphics work. This is the type of printer that you would tend to sort of go towards. Incredibly expensive, excellent quality, very and much but slower than a laser printer. But obviously a laser printer, you're going to be printing A4 to A3. There is some laser printers that will print a little bit bigger. These printers are designed to print a lot on a bigger scale than your average sort of laser printer. Plotter printers, I think this is the last one. So plotter printer prints large scale precise designs. It's slightly different to the other types of printers that we've looked at. It uses pens or cutting tools to draw continuous lines, so it's really great for signage, for engineering drawings. You might have used one in DT and design technology. Really good for architectural plans, engineering drawing, signage, things like that, like I've said. Very highly accurate, so they're very precise and accurate for large designs. But again, just like the die one, very costly, and they're very bulky, they're very big in nature, so they're going to take up a lot of space. And finally, just to recap everything that we've done, and I know I've rushed through this, but make sure that you go back and or do some of your own research on these different printers and scanners and readers. Printers come in a variety of forms. Inkjet, cheap, limited amount of printing. You're not going to be using it every day. You're not going to be using it for massive amounts of printing. The ink inside of it is very expensive, but it's cheap to have. Usually people have them at home. Laser printers used for businesses, high volume printing, very precise, very accurate, but again, a big outlay initially, but really cheap to run. 3D printers, new technology, uses plastic to build up layers to create three-dimensional products. Dot matrix printers, an old style technology that uses a pin head to hit a ribbon to put the ink onto your paper, used mainly in financial institutes where lots of information needs to be printed out. Thermal, special type of papers need to be used so it heats the paper. Die printers, again, that's very high quality, big printing, like graphics design, things like that. And plotters, we've just gone over. Each have their own uses and their own methods and their own pros and cons. So make sure that you're aware of these different types of printers. Them are the ones that the vocational IT mentioned in the spec. Them are the ones that you need to know for your exam. Just like scanners and readers, the capture data, so your printers are an output device, your scanners and your readers are input devices, it's bringing information into the computer. The capture data in different ways, from fingerprints, your biometrics, to RFID chips, to exam papers, and so your optical character recognition and your QR code. So lots of different scanners, lots of different readers. Make sure you read upon them, make sure you know them before you go into your exam. Good luck with your revision, and I'll see you in the next video.